Good morning, grade four. I just want to welcome you to week 2 of grade 4 online. You guys have been doing really, really well. I'm very proud of you. I can't stop saying it. I need you guys to understand that this way of teaching and this way of learning is very different from what we're accustomed to. You don't have me in a classroom to pick up if you're making a mistake, to look at your work, to help you along, to demonstrate responses on the board. And so I want you guys to feel comfortable to ask me questions. If you're doing an activity and you don't understand something, take a picture of what you've done. If you have a question, send it to me and I will review. Between the hours of 9 and 1, I am available to answer questions. I do continue to answer questions throughout the evening, but I'm not going to be able to guarantee you that I'll be like right there sitting at my computer waiting to read an email, okay? I can set up a conference call if there's something that you're really not getting. What I don't want you guys to do, grade 4, is to be lazy about it, okay? Everybody has to play their part in this difficult time. And so I want you to watch the videos that I've done. I don't like to do videos, so I know that some of them are just kind of ordinary, but watch the videos because in every single video I'm attempting to explain something that you need to understand, okay? Let's try and make week 2 even better than week 1 was. There are some students who are missing works. Please understand that every single lesson stays online for a certain amount of time and then it comes off. And so if I send you a note and say redo something, it means I have reset that lesson for you and it's going to expire again, okay? Now there are a couple of students who are missing grades from last week. I will send emails later today. I want you to get through today's work first, but I will send some emails later today prompting you to revisit lessons that you have missed. The system is doing things differently, guys. Some of these grades are automatically done by the system. And if you are missing a grade, some of you are opening an activity and closing it without even answering one question, not realizing that when you submit that test, it goes in with a 0. And so I just want you to be wise about what you're doing, understand the process, or I know it's new, but still get accustomed to the process now and let us avoid some of those mistakes this week. It is a bright and beautiful day today. This week is my birthday. So I want you guys to be extra good, okay? For no other reason other than that. In today's Bible class, we're continuing our theme of love. We're looking specifically on the theme, love your enemies. And we're going to be just glancing at a couple of Bible verses in the next couple of minutes. And I want everyone to pay attention, okay? If you wish, make notes. As I always say to you in class, a wise man would scribble some notes whilst I'm reading the Bible story, okay? And so this whole concept of love, in loving like God, loving like Jesus, following the example that Jesus set when he came and walked on earth with man. A part of that is even loving your enemies, and that's not easy, loving someone who has hurt you. We've spoken about that in class. And so before I start the lesson today, I want to read a scripture from Matthew 5, verse 43 to 44 to you, which addresses this whole topic. It says, "You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." In Matthew, Jesus is actually telling us that, listen, if someone does something to you that you don't like, if someone has harmed you in some way, you cannot hate them because your hate is going to come against your relationship with God. You have got to love even that person. Now, you don't necessarily need to walk up to them and hug them up and, have lunch with them in the lunchroom. But if someone is being mean to you, that is not what God requires. What God requires is that you don't render evil for evil. You're not treating someone bad because they treated you bad. Sometimes you have to pray for the person. And one of the lessons that we learn in grade 4 is those who know better do better, right? And so if you have a Christian heart and you love God and you know how to show God's love, someone who doesn't know that doing something bad to you shouldn't change your love that you have in you from God. You need to do better because you know God, because you know better. And so I'm going to read a couple of I'm going to make a couple of references. Some of these are stories we have done before in class, but they all cite examples of persons in the Bible who responded very differently to enemies. And the first person who we're going to reference is Moses and how he responded to Pharaoh. God chose Moses to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. Moses asked Pharaoh to free God's people, but Pharaoh made life miserable for the Israelites and threatened to kill Moses. Because Moses knew that God was in control, he didn't seek personal revenge against Pharaoh. Now, Moses did things to demonstrate to Pharaoh what God told him to do. Moses did not attempt to fight Pharaoh personally, and so we can take a lesson out of that. We know the story of David and Saul. Remember, Saul used to persecute the Christians. We had done that. God chose David to replace Saul as king of Israel because Saul had sinned against God and lied to Samuel about his sin. David, a man after God's own heart, tried to honor God with his life. King Saul became jealous of David and wanted him dead. David went into hiding and asked for God's protection. There were several times when David could have killed Saul, but he didn't. Now remember, David is the one that wrote all those Psalms in the Bible that we all love so much. Naboth and Ahab and Jezebel. You remember that story we read about the vineyard that Naboth had? Naboth honored God and followed God's law. One law said that a man was not to sell his land. Naboth denied the wicked King Ahab's request to buy his vineyard. When Ahab pouted over it, his wife Jezebel, who was even more wicked than Ahab, devised a scheme to have Naboth killed so that Ahab could have the vineyard. Naboth obeyed God's law, but he was killed. Both Ahab and Jezebel were later killed for their wickedness. Guys, we have to remember that Christ set a very clear example. And in these stories that came earlier in the Bible, we are getting lessons all along of how God expects us to interact with people who are not being fair to us. If you think about it, even Christ didn't treat his enemies the way they treated him. They crucified him. They hated Christ. They stoned him. They beat him. And even when Jesus was on the cross, he asked God to forgive them. He said, "Forgive them, Father, because they know not what they do." And so I'm not going to pretend that this is not hard to do. I know that it's not easy to be nice to someone who's been really, really unpleasant to you. But God asks us to do this because it is his will that we live in the earth like this. And remember, a lot of people can dress up and go to church. And a lot of people can wear big fancy hats and dresses that are long all the way down to their ankle. But it is by the love and compassion that you show in this earth that they will know, people will know that we are the children of God. We have a busy week ahead of us. I know this is a long lesson, but I want you to write done in the answer key, the answer bar, when you have finished watching this video, and let's take a look at a few questions together. Okay.